aspects to the practical conditions that we have in these inverters. Even if you take a very simple topology, it can also have some uh, theoretically unexpected behaviors. So how do these issues manifest and how do we try to address them are the chief focus of today's presentation. So this is the general schematic that I show during my presentations, where we have a power converter that is fed by PV array, and the output is either load or grid. But in our case, we are looking at the grid-connected power converter systems. So as we all know, power converter typically would consist of semiconductor devices and the reactive elements, the inductor, capacitor, and let's say transformers. And we usually do not want to have any dissipative elements like resistors because we want to achieve maximum efficiency. So this is basically the power handling part of a power converter, right? But what we need in any power converter system is its closed loop control. So we have two sources here. We have an active PV source and we also have an active source as in grid. So how do we really transfer power from PV to the grid? And how do we prevent any power going back in case of when there is not much power available here? And how do we ensure that the current that gets injected to the grid is sinusoidal and at unity power factor? So these are all the things that need to be taken care by the closed loop control. And in the most high level picture that you can see for a closed loop controller would be you have your reference, you have the feedback, and finally what we can control here is only the semiconductor switches here, because these are passive elements and you don't have any control over them. So just to differentiate standalone and grid connected systems, in standalone what you have is you have the load. So you want to control the output voltage. So if it is a single phase system, the closed loop controller would actually try to regulate the output voltage to be, let us say, 230 volts, 50 hertz. Whereas if it is a grid connected system, then this voltage is determined by the grid itself. So what you need to control is the current that gets injected into the grid. So the reference changes accordingly. So in grid connected systems, you have a current reference, and in standalone systems, you have a voltage reference. That is from this point of view. And for the PV array as such, what we need is we need a maximum power point tracking, right? So the MPPT algorithm would actually eventually give us what is the current reference that is needed to be injected into the grid. And the feedback would be the actual current, and you have the switch control signals. So here, when we talk about practical issues, we can have practical issues in the operation of the power converter. Like when you start up, is there any problem, right? And that is especially true when you have multi-stage power converter, which is grid connected, because you have two active sources and both would actually try to send power, right? So how do you smoothly ensure that the power really goes in the direction that we desire? So that's a startup problem, which you may not really think about it unless you go very much deep into the actual hardware. Then the other aspect is the control. So ideally what we do is we do high frequency pulse width modulation. So the current that gets injected to the grid would be ideally sinusoidal, and all the switching harmonics would be attenuated by the filters that we have. But many times what we see is there are still lower order harmonics. So we need to identify their cause and try to address them accordingly. So an important point here is to identify the cause first, why these non-ideal behaviors are happening, and then come up with a solution. So if you keep just trying out things in the control or just changing some of the components, it would really not work, because you need to identify the cause and develop a solution accordingly. Right? So we will today consider three case studies where we look at the practical problems and how they are solved, we will see. So that is the main motivation of today's presentation. And this is again just to give a general picture when it comes to a power converter. What are the important things that we need to look at? So you have the power quality, reliability, efficiency, power density, and finally the cost, right? So why we have this slide is because many of the problems that we will discuss today, they are basically subset of one of these sections. So, for example, we develop a power converter with high power density. So that means we use, let us say, a high frequency transformer link. So overall, the size of the converter becomes smaller, but that would usually make us use multi-stage topology because you cannot do it in one stage usually, unless it is a DC to DC converter. So in that case, what really happens, right? So that we will see today. And the other thing is power quality. So as I mentioned earlier, the current that we want to inject to the grid should be ideally purely sinusoidal. And if it has harmonics, that is basically an impact on the power quality. And we have standards that are to be met. So to basically qualify the product to market, right? So this slide basically tells how these parameters are affected by the design. So the power quality is affected by, first of all, what is the filter type and the filter design. So for the switching frequency components, it is purely the whether we are going with an inductive filter or an LCL filter or any other higher order filter. This is what affects the power quality for switching frequency components. And as I mentioned, there are non-idealities which would actually result in lower order harmonics. So dead time is one example. Then in grid connected systems, even the phase lock loops. So the control block that we saw earlier was mainly about the controlling the current here, but this current should actually be synchronized to the grid. So the voltage that the power converter produces should have the same frequency as the grid. Otherwise, we will not have any power transfer from here to real power transfer. So this topic we will not discuss today, but the phase lock loop also plays a role in the power converter. And then efficiency is definitely dependent on the design and selection of the components. So if you are using a high current system and high current low voltage system, you may have to parallel MOSFETs, for example, to reduce the conduction losses. So this is mainly about how well you select the devices, how well you select the magnetics so that the power losses are reduced. And even the modulation methods also would actually play a role. So this is a very interconnected system, and many times you may not be able to pinpoint a particular problem to only one solution, right? So we need to be aware of the complete design and the non-idealities that can happen to effectively solve these practical issues. So this is just to give you, we'll just rush through here. The idea of these set of slides is not to really go into what are the different topologies, but just to highlight a practical, very beginning problem when you design a PV inverter. For example, if you want to make a non-isolated single stage topology, the question is this topology feasible for all power levels? So you have a 230 volt single phase system. Can we do this topology for any particular power, right? Uh, it is not really possible. Why? Because if you want this topology to work, the DC bus needs to be at least more than the maximum peak voltage of the grid. Then only you'll be able to operate this power converter. even though this has many advantages, because it's a very so many, there are hardly any components here, right? You will get very high efficiency, and it's a linear topology, so the problem of harmonics is also very less, and the control is also simple. But the problem is, if you want to have this voltage should be, let's say if this is 230, then nominal grid peak would be 325, right? So let us say we have a 400 volt DC bus. So you need to have 400 volts available here. And if you see the panels that are available in the market, if you take a 300 watt uh, panel, that would only give you about 35 volts. So if you want to connect all of them in series, then you would actually need about more than 10 of these panels to achieve this 400 volt DC bus here. So this topology basically works for any, will not work for anything less than, let us say, 3 to 4 kilowatt power. So these are some of the things that would actually be, I mean, if someone just asks you why can't we go with a simple single phase inverter for a 1 kilowatt PV inverter system, the answer is yes. So that's why we go for multi-stage topology. So you have boost stage and then a single phase. And you can also have transformer isolated topologies where the transformer will give you the step up. And this is again boost with single phase, and you have a transformer here. This will be a 50 hertz transformer. This is one of the example that we will consider, see what are the practical problems here. Then you can have an isolated DC to DC converter followed by an inverter. So I have just shown single phase systems here, and they can be extended for three phase also. And this is a dual active bridge based topology. And you can also have a direct matrix converter. And this is another topology that we will discuss today, where we have a, this is similar to dual active bridge, but instead of a DC link capacitor here, we just have a lossless number. So this is not stiff DC voltage here. So this is a typical example for a multi-stage topology where you have DC to AC at high frequency, then you do AC to DC, and then you do again DC to AC to get the final 50 hertz output. So what are the startup issues here? We will have a look. And this is another topology where we have a, you can say, non-conventional topology. So we have two isolated Chook converters here with inputs in parallel, whereas the outputs are in series. And what are the problems associated with this topology when it is used for grid connection is another point that we will see. Okay, so as I mentioned, the closed loop control of grid connected PV inverters, the aim is to regulate the grid current and the DC bus voltage with MPPT and meet the harmonics as per standards. One example is IEEE 1547. You need to have good transient response. And if you identify any non-idealities, you need to address them. So this is the simplest topology that we will consider first. And here what we have is a boost stage and a single phase inverter. And output we have a line to it. So ideally, this topology will actually give you a PWM signal with fundamental at 50 hertz, and the switching frequency could be, let's say, 40 or 50 kilohertz. So ideally, even this inductive filter would be sufficient to attenuate the switching frequency harmonics, and we would expect a nice sinusoidal waveform going into the grid. But practically, if you just make this will be a low power topology. So let's say 1 kilowatt or so, or even less maybe, because as the power increases, this line frequency transformer becomes more and more bulky. So we need to keep this to a lower power level. So practically, if you see, you will see there are a lot of lower order harmonics that are getting injected into the grid. And they are not just odd harmonics, but there are also even harmonics. Now, this appears a little bit surprising because ideally we don't see any sources of lower order harmonics, right? But practically, if you think, we really have a lower order harmonic problem because this transformer draws magnetizing current, right? And many of you might have seen the magnetizing current would actually not be purely sinusoidal, but it will be having lower order harmonics due to the nonlinear BH curve of the transformer. So what happens is it tries to draw that magnetizing current from the grid side, and we would actually try to inject a sinusoidal current. So effectively, you will still see there is distortion at the grid side. But that should be ideally only odd harmonics, but you would also see some even harmonics. And that is another surprise. Why are we having even harmonics? So the reason for even harmonics is if there is a small DC injected into this loop, for example, that will not get reflected to the secondary side. So the grid will not get any DC injection, but this DC here would actually bias it will shift the BH curve of the transformer slightly to the right or the left. And that would actually make it asymmetric, and you would start drawing even harmonics also. So you can see that just because of this transformer, you are actually ending up having both odd and even harmonics here. So now, how do we really solve this problem, right? So one thing is to address the even harmonics, you need to tackle the source of it, which is the DC injection. So in the controller, we need to have something that would actually take care of any DC injection here. Now for the other odd harmonics, ideally the transformer would definitely need the magnetizing current. So what we have to do is we have to ensure that it does not take the odd harmonics from the grid side, but the controller is injecting it from the primary side. So whatever we have here is clean and will not have any harmonics. So this is what is explained here. So I'll skip that. So a simple way that we did this was ideally you have only this loop here. You have a proportional resonant controller. You have the plant. So you have, let's say, the current reference and current feedback. So to address the DC offset problem, what you need to do is you need to take care of the DC. So you need to have an integral controller also, which will ensure that there is no DC injection. And to tackle the other harmonics, there are different ways possible. This is only one way. We can use multi-resonant controllers also, where you have, this is for fundamental, and you can have for higher harmonic, let's say third, fifth, so on. And they will basically take care of those. So here what we did was we used an adaptive filter to extract a particular dominant harmonic, and then use a proportional controller to take care of that. And here also PLL is very important. PLL is actually not just giving us the fundamental references, but it is also giving us the harmonic references. So it is important that the PLL itself does not produce any harmonic distortion.
Dr. Abhijit, just one quick question in the chat.
Okay.
What are the common sources of DC offsets, or how do DC injection happen?
Okay. So a simple reason would be if the modulation, very simple would be if there is a slight mismatch in these devices. So the voltage drop of S1 and S4 may not be identical. So there can be a very small DC voltage here. It will not be huge, it will be maybe few millivolts. But do we have any impedance for the DC? It's hardly the resistance of the inductance and also the winding resistance of the transformer. So even a very small mismatch can actually result in not too small of a DC injection in the primary. So that would be sufficient to basically shift the BH curve and give you some even harmonics.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so this is just to show how the waveform looked before doing any of the control methods, just with the conventional control. You can see that the grid current is quite distorted, and we have a THD of about 9.4%, which is huge. But with the proposed control, you can see that the waveform has improved significantly, and we have a THD of within 5%. Now we will a little bit shift the gears and go towards the startup issue. So what we saw was a closed loop control based solution for harmonic distortion. The second one that we see is the startup. So any power converter, the startup essentially means if there are DC voltages, they must be pre-charged without high inrush currents. So we have the capacitors which are uncharged. So if you power up, they would draw very high current, inrush current. So that is one issue that we need to take care. And the pre-charge should also not cause any over voltages. Many times they can happen due to circuit parasitics and some unwanted resonances, which we may not have taken care in the ideal modeling. But practically these are all existing, and they may cause some over voltages. And over voltages are definitely dangerous because if we don't have sufficient margin for the devices, the reliability would go down every time you start up the power. And also, since these problems are inherently there, what we want is we want a startup system without any additional circuit. Can we just do it with proper timing sequence of various parts of the power converter? Right? So that's a desirable thing. If we cannot do it, then we have to go with the startup system. So consider this topology where we have a high frequency inverter, and we have a rectifier, then you have an output inverter. So you have grid here, forget about the load here, we have grid only. So we have two main switches here, one that contacts to the grid, other that contacts to the PV modules. And here is one more capacitor that we would actually like to recharge it to more than the grid voltage peak so that we can smoothly transfer power from input side to the grid. So we have to pre-charge this capacitor and this capacitor without having any problems such as inrush current or over voltages. So looking at the first situation about this part, can we pre-charge this capacitor directly by closing this switch SW1? It so happens that when we have PV modules as the source, it's actually lucky because you can do that. So what happens is when you close this switch directly, even if this capacitor is fully having no charge, it would act like a short circuit to the PV modules, right? And the PV modules have limited short circuit current, and the MPPT current is actually very close to this short circuit current. It's a bit less than that. So we are not really going to have any huge current to the capacitor. And without any additional thing, we can directly close this and recharge this capacitor. So that's what is shown here, the direct recharge. So this is the pre-charge current, and this is the voltage. As you can see, initially the current jumps, but it is limited, and then it goes down. But if you want to limit that, you can add a pre-charge resistor, and once the pre-charge is done, you will have to short that. So that would be an additional thing. So if we don't want that, we can just go ahead with this approach. But the actual problem starts when we look at the other capacitor. So if you look at this topology, so this is acting as a high frequency inverter. So this will actually produce a, let's say, square wave AC voltage here. So that's what we have represented here at the transformer primary. And this is our output side rectifier. And this is the snubber part. So one approach conventionally that we can do is the rectifier, these IGBTs are switched off, only the diodes are used for rectification. So it's like whatever is there, it will be rectified by these diodes, and then it will charge this capacitor. But we will see that this actually causes over voltage and also inrush current. Inrush because this was uncharged, so it will try to take more current. And why over voltage happens is mainly because of the parasitic. So what we will have is you have the leakage of the transformer, and you have the, let's say, like the winding resistance, you have the magnetizing inductance, and we have a winding capacitance also. So any step change here would actually result in a ringing effect here, and the voltage goes beyond the ideally expected value. But since we are using we are only having diodes here, and this switch is also off, let us say. This is on. So what happens is this capacitor charges to a higher voltage, and then this gets reverse biased, so that this capacitor is now sitting at a higher pre-charge level than what we actually want. So if the ringing is more, then it can ideally go to almost double the input voltage level also, right? So you need to, if we don't do any alternate arrangement, we will actually end up having high voltage stress for the downstream devices, and that would actually reduce the reliability. So it so happens that we can solve this problem for this topology by just properly sequencing the switching of various stages. So what we do is we initially keep both, so that is the original state where both SW2 and SW1 are open, and everything is, I mean, there is no energy in any of these capacitors. Then what we do is we actually release the pulses of this and this. So it's a synchronized rectification. So S1 and S5 will have the same gate signal, the control signal. Similarly, S3, S7, and so on. And this switch S is kept on, and the duty for all these gating pulses is kept as 0.5. So what we have is we have these devices switching, but the main power is still not connected between the PV and the grid. So then what we do is we close this switch S terminal. So then what happens? The PV module goes into short circuit mode. So this will slow, and that short circuit current would actually start the charging of this capacitor. So slowly this voltage will start building up, and since these IGBTs are also switching, we have a path for the energy to go back into the source also. So we will not have that over voltage problem also. So this capacitor also will be charged to the expected value. And then finally we can close this and release the pulses for the output inverter. So this basically shows how this is happening. So in the conventional way, you can see so much of ringing is happening, and the secondary side voltage is actually charging at this peak. And this will continue even if you use a quasi-square wave type of modulation. This would actually help in reducing the inrush current, but it will still have over voltage problem. But with the proposed approach, you can see that the ringing is removed completely, and you have a nice almost square wave here. And you can also see that the recharge voltage is less. It is only like 320 volts. Whereas in the first case, if we had not done any proper action, it would have gone to 400 volts. So this was done at lower voltage levels because we didn't want to stress the devices. They were all 600 volt devices. So this is just to illustrate that the startup can give such problems, and we need to carefully time them or have a dedicated startup circuitry for ensuring smooth operation.
Dr. Abhijit, one quick question that they want to know, you use both MOSFET and IGBTs, right? In the previous, yeah. So what is any reason behind that?
Yes, that's mainly because the voltage levels are different. So we have kind of higher turns ratio transformer here. They're looking at low voltage DC motors here, predominantly thinking so here MOSFETs would be more suited because they will give you reduced power loss. And here the voltage levels are like 400 to 600 range, and there we went with IGBTs. But these days they can also have some MOSFETs which may work better. So it's mainly because of the efficiency.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So now this
I think there is some echo. Some echo.
Oh, okay. Is it still there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let me.
Yeah.
Hello. Is that fine?
Yeah, there is some, I don't know whether it's for me or everybody else.
Okay.
Yeah. Disconnect and reconnect the audio device. Do you have any audio device?
No, I'm just using the laptop actually.
Okay, okay.
Should I just disconnect the call and
Yeah. Maybe you can just rejoin.
Okay.
Some audio issue. Okay.
This is the same picture that we saw earlier. The converter is replaced by these two rectangular blocks. You have the two output voltages, V1 and V2, and the final output is basically V1 minus V2. Okay. So one way to modulate these is, let's say V1 will give you a half sinusoidal voltage, V2 will give you another half sinusoidal voltage. So the net output voltage would be a fully sinusoidal voltage, right? So the advantage of this is we can operate this only in each of them in one half cycle only, and that would actually again help you in terms of efficiency and also in terms of, let's say, thermal response. So that is the main reason you can go with this topology. But practically, the major problem with this topology is it has a nonlinear output to duty ratio transformation. So this is basically like buck boost is what you get. So the output voltage is related to the input voltage with this equation. Now if D is, let us say, a sinusoidal type of function, not bipolar but unipolar sinusoidal, the output will not be sinusoidal again because it's a nonlinear term. In our typical inverters, it's a buck type of topology, right? So what we will have is only the D term coming here. So if D has a sinusoidal term, the output will also have a sinusoidal. So the converter here itself has some non-linearity which can produce outputs. So this is something that we know beforehand, so that you can see in the outputs. So if you give the duty ratio to be like this, the output of that particular module would actually look like this. This is not really sinusoidal. You can see it is skewed in both the sides, right? So the output voltage would be basically a subtraction of these two. So you will have like this. So this is giving positive cycle and this will give you the negative cycle. So ideally this will, if you analyze the frequency components, they will be only odd harmonics. Here comes the practical problem. You will see a huge amount of even harmonics also. Why? Again, the mismatch in the modules can have very small, let's say this peak and this peak are not very identical. There is a small change in the peak that itself will give you a DC offset, right? And again, there is no impedance to take care of the DC, so there can be a huge DC current. And similarly, you can also have even harmonics. So you have odd harmonic due to converter nonlinearity and also the dead time. And the DC offset and even harmonics are due to mismatch in the modules of the differential mode Chook inverter. So how do we take care of this? First, we need to take care of the nonlinearity, and that we do using what is called as a static inverse transformation. So let us say this is how we write as duty ratio as a nonlinear function of some Vref over Vref plus input, some scaling event, right? So if this is the duty, then if you substitute that in your actual output input relation of the converter, what you get is the output is basically a scaled version of the Vref. So now this Vref can be a sinusoid, right? So the output also will be sinusoid. So the trick here is the duty, we are not giving sinusoid. Duty will be actually a distorted waveform so that the output that we get is not distorted. So this will take care of the converter related harmonics, but we will also have the harmonics due to the mismatch, so that we will address using additional compensating blocks. Like you have a fundamental PR controller, then you add let's say second order, then third, fifth. And why do we need integrator? That is because we need to handle the DC offset. So for all these harmonics, the reference is 0. And for the fundamental, you have the grid current reference. And this would actually be generated by the MPPT algorithm. So what you will do is you will pass through all these controllers. You may have to add a feed forward. Finally, you will get the reference. So whatever we saw that reference, that has to be given for both the modules. So basically they are phase shifted by 180 degree. Then you do this static inverse transformation to get the actual duty. And then that will be given as the control signal for each of these modules. And you also need a planned transfer function. In the simplest format, it will be just the grid side impedance. So with this, you can actually address that. And this waveform just shows how bad the waveform can look if you don't take care of these issues. You can see that this is the grid current. It's like, so we have used third harmonic compensation still. Even then, the DHT is like 41%. If you don't use that, then actually the inverter would have tripped because the currents would actually go very high. And if you use the control that we saw earlier, you can see that the waveform has improved significantly and the THT has actually gone down to 3.9%. So this is another example where the converter itself introduces some problems that we need to take care without any hardware change, with only the controller, a proper design of the controller. So I think with this, we have kind of covered the practical issues that I wanted to talk about. We have another 10-15 minutes to have any questions.
Yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Abhijit. Thank you for your time. We have a couple of questions. We'll start with a few. Nachiket, if you are available, you can unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hello, are you able to hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
please go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I'm
Please
on a
introduce
low
yourself.
bandwidth connection. So yeah, Dr. Abhijit, I am Nachiketa Deshmukh. I am pursuing PhD in IIT Kanpur presently, and my question is regarding your case study number 1. So firstly, thank you very much for your presentation, and please correct me here if I'm wrong. So my doubt is you have a PR controller sitting there
Right.
in case 1. So my question is, instead of using this additional K adapt and this adaptive filter,
Okay.
if I just make this PR controller GPR a multi-resonant PR controller, will this thing work the same way?
Yes, it will work. So that's what I mentioned. This is one way of doing it only. And we did this because it was little bit computationally more effective, more efficient than having multi-resonant approach. But it will also do the job.
Okay, so multi-resonant also you may be able to implement it as a sum of different singly tuned resonant filters, right? So
Correct.
that is
Yeah.
also easy to implement. I mean, please correct me here if I'm wrong.
Yes, it is easy to implement, but if you really go down to the details, like how many multiplications and additions are needed, this approach was resulting in a little bit reduction in number of multiplications and additions.
Can you please
So
explain
we have
how?
a paper on that. Maybe you can go through that. We have tabulated that. So,
okay.
Maybe the number of arithmetic operations are lower, Dr. Okay.
Yeah. So actually, what you will implement in a digital controller. So the resource usage in the digital controller was a bit lesser for this approach than the.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Abhijit. Location. Maybe you can unmute yourself and go ahead. Location. And just introduce yourself and go ahead. Okay. So he asks if the whole control loop bandwidth is less than one of the harmonic signal, will it be possible to design the resonant controller? I don't know if it makes sense. Okay, there's one more question. Can the high frequency transformer used for dual active bridge, will it also create a DC injection issue in practice?
High frequency transfer in the dual active bridge.
Yes.
I would probably say no, because it's again, you will have, it's not directly going towards the grid, right? So any mismatch here may cause some DC injection in the primary side, but that would not be reflected here. And we are anyway again rectifying that and finally going to the output stage. So this is very similar to dual active bridge, just you'll have a capacitor here. So it would really not create a problem. So the main problem would be if the transformer is coming towards the grid, then we will have the issue.
Got it. Thank you very much. Esther, if you are here, you can unmute yourself and go ahead. Yeah. Esther asks, how would you implement a virtual resistance in this case whenever you have a control loop? Yeah, go ahead, Esther.
Yeah, actually, sir, if suppose I want to control the switch S, which is given, yeah.
Okay.
So if suppose I want the capacitor to be discharged rather than having a physical resistor, if there's a concept where I can use a virtual resistance in the control loop. So is there any method as such, like I can include that in a control loop and try to control that switch S through that?
See, virtual resistance, usually when we talk about it's in power factor correction controllers, where you would try to have a virtual resistance emulation so that the input current is in phase with the input voltage. But here I think you are more looking towards like discharging of this capacitor, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So that, I mean, discharging is usually like you don't really, I mean, I'm not sure why you're thinking about the discharge of this. It will be a complete modulation scheme actually. So we need to really control how this capacitor discharges so that the voltage that is coming here is known, right? So
Okay.
the timing of this switch would be, you will have to determine based on the modulation.
Okay. Okay.
And
Okay.
when you want to turn it off, obviously it will discharge. It may take a little bit more time if you don't have any resistor, but ideally we don't want to have any resistor.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Fine. Fine. Fine, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Raghu Selvaraj, if you have a question, you can unmute yourself and go ahead. Raghu Selvaraj. Okay. I think it was more of a comment than a question. Yeah. Ramesh P asks, what are the pros and cons of having a 3 number of single phase inverters driven with 400 volt DC bus compared to having a 3-phase inverter? I don't know whether.
Sorry, I could not get it properly.
What are the pros and cons of having 3 single phase inverters rather than having a single 3-phase inverters?
You can't really compare that, right? So it's a system level decision. If you have a 3-phase system, you have to go with a 3-phase type of controller. But I think what he's meaning is whether you want to have 3 separate inverters and try to control the grid current.
Yeah, it is not clear.
In a 3-phase system.
Yeah. Okay.
Again, it all boils down to if you have 3 separate converters, you may have again the issue of mismatch, and that may give you additional harmonic or DC injection type of problems. If you have a single 3-phase inverter, you may be a little bit better.
Got it. Vishal asks, how can leakage current be reduced in common ground type transformer-less inverters? Is there any means to reduce leakage current in common ground type for transformer inverters?
Transformer-less inverters?
Yeah, I don't know. Vishal, are you here? Vishal Anand? Okay. Okay, there is one more question by Raghu Selvaraj regarding EMI issues in transformerless inverter or micro inverters. How would, I think, mitigation? They're asking about mitigation.
EMI mitigation?
Yes.
Okay, the simplest way is to have an EMI filter to address the common mode and differential mode conducted noise. And for the radiated, you need to have proper shielding. That would also help you in susceptibility. But many times these EMI filters may end up being bulky. So in that case, we have to look at if we can have a localized circulation of, let's say, the common mode currents by having some localized capacitors. That would actually help us in reducing the EMI filter size. But if you don't want to do all that, the simplest way is to just use standard EMI filters.
Got it. And Nachiketa, please go ahead with your question.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. So my question is regarding use of aluminum electrolytic caps in these single phase circuits. So there are popular literature. There is a popular literature saying that these caps are not that reliable or have low lifetime. So being in industry for some time, what is your opinion about it? I would be really interested to know.
Right. So many times you cannot really avoid the electrolytic capacitors. So for example, in this topology, one of the reason to go for this topology was we are avoiding electrolytic capacitors at high voltage side. So this is not an electrolytic capacitor. So this is not really a stiff DC voltage. Even then, we are able to regulate the current nicely for this topology. But that is not always possible. And in that case, the only way that we can do is we'll have to have, let's say, more number of capacitors in parallel so that you have effective ESR is less. And be more conservative in the capacitor selection, so that you select a little bit higher voltage capacitor than its operating voltage. So such things would actually help in improving the life of the capacitors.
Yeah, thanks. So the question would be regarding the second harmonic filtering. So in this topology which you are showing, the second harmonic power will be buffered by the CDC capacitor on the primary side. So that will be a large value of capacitance, if I'm not wrong.
Correct. Yeah.
So the question is regarding that. So if I were to implement this inverter actually in industry, the electrolytic capacitor will be the weakest link in the reliability if we go by literature.
Correct.
So is
But
that
here
really
so? The thing is, this is a low voltage side, right? So usually the low voltage electrolytic capacitor are still much better than the high voltage electrolytic capacitors. So we would actually go with that and have
Are
more
you talking
capacity.
about polymer electrolytic caps, sir, than or dry type electrolytic caps? Which
No,
are
any
available?
electrolytic, usually if you look at the lower voltage caps, they will have better ESR characteristics. So you will have reduced losses, and also the size wise also you'll have, I mean, if you want to use more capacitors just to reduce the stress on them, you can go ahead and do it. But that is not really feasible when you go for higher voltage. So yes, we are not avoiding it here, but we are basically ensuring that the stress levels on these capacitors are low.
Yeah, just a very short follow-up question. So what about your experience in industry? Do you use electrolytic caps in
Yes,
the
we
products
do.
you design?
We do.
And there you over design it, like you said.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you everyone. Thank you everyone for your questions, and thank you for Dr. Abhijit for his wonderful presentation. On behalf of IEEE PELS and IES Bangalore chapter, I thank Dr. Abhijit for giving this wonderful presentation on grid connected photovoltaic inverters. Thank you very much, Dr. Abhijit.
Thanks a lot. It was a very good experience for me, and it was a nice interactive session. Thank you, Dr. Janmeja. Thanks, IEEE. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Abhijit. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Thank you very much. It was a very nice presentation. I have some questions, but maybe I can take
go
it
ahead.
with
Go
you
ahead.
sometime.
Let us take it offline.
No, we can take it offline.
Okay.
Thank you. One quick question, maybe for the audience also. See, one thing is that if you have to solve this harmonic issue, right, through closed loop control, right, you have to generate voltages through at those harmonic frequencies. Isn't that right?
Correct.
I mean, that you have that VK reference, right?
Yes.
Is that right? And then that means that you should have a high bandwidth current loop.
Correct.
I mean,
Correct.
your loops has to be correct, and that will mean that your switching frequency has to be high enough, right?
Correct.
In order
Yes.
to support that. Right. So just one question, just to think about this problem, right? So do you think that the problem remains similar if I simplify it to say you drive the transformer in, say, open circuit? I mean, in, open the secondary. Let's don't have the voltage, right? Like you do your open circuit test, right?
Okay.
So now you drive the transformer, but you will end up having some DC injection, which will make the BH curve of the transformer non-linear, right?
Correct.
And then what will happen is that if you try to apply sinusoidal voltage, it will start drawing harmonic currents, right?
Correct.
So the thing is that if one can understand the control strategy, say even in open loop, if you can make the current sinusoidal, you have to apply harmonic voltages, right?
Correct.
So that is the basic idea, right? And then
exactly.
And because you are not considering right now any harmonic in the voltages or the applied grid voltages, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Correct. But anyway, if it is closed loop and you are trying to follow that also, if
that
it
also
injects, that also it will clean, right?
Correct. Yes.
Very nice. Thank you, Abhijit.
Thank you for attending.
Yeah, thank you, Janmeja, for organizing it very nicely. Yeah. And thank you all. Yeah, thank you. Actually, just one more thing. I'm sorry. So typically we have a gift for our speakers from the society, both the society, right? We have some nice water bottle with the marked ones with IEEE PLS and IELS, and we used to give them when we used to have physical
Correct.
talks, right? So we would like to give you that. So Janmaja, it is there in my office. So can you
Yeah,
arrange that we can
Yes,
give
yes,
that
yes,
to Dr. Abhijit?
yes,
Yeah?
yes, bro.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, have
Thank
a very
you,
good
Dr.
evening.
Abhijit.
Yeah.
Thank
Bye
you,
bye.
Professor Kaushik.
Bye
Yeah.
bye. Bye. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone. We will end the meeting now. Yeah.
Thank you.